Good morning, and welcome to Backchannel. It's the 1st of March, brand new month, brand new day, Tuesday. I'm Anthony Davis. This is the Anthony Davis Show, where we spend a little bit of time together talking about the news, talking about the country, talking about culture, talking about science, talking about health, talking about anything that you want to talk about, because Backchannel is the only place where you can listen to and interact with hosts live on your device. So if you have an Echo Show, that's the best way to do it. Wake it up, say the word say, and then your message. You can also follow the show on YouTube. And if you want to message using your typing fingers, then go to backchannel.tv. Lots to talk about today. We're going to look at the Ukraine war, of course, as many companies distance themselves from Russia. Films are added to the list. That's right, movies are not being released in Russia. I know the new Batman movie is not going to be released in Russia. So that's kind of interesting. We'll look at that together. Also, how the Russia-Ukraine conflict has fundamentally changed Joe Biden's presidency. That's something to consider as well. Climate, well, the Supreme Court has heard arguments in the most significant environmental case in a decade. I'll bring you the details on that. And incredible American women. Susan B. Anthony is the main reason that women can vote in America. We'll take a look at her story as well today. So lots to talk about, and we're going to meet up with your pal Hal, because he's on after me, and we have a little chat with him in a couple of hours' time. So all of that to come right here on Backchannel. Let's jump straight into the morning papers and see what's happening, see, what's making the headlines. The Sun Herald is where we go first. They lead with students fall ill while vaping in Hancock schools. Yes, it says vaping is becoming a dangerous issue in the Hancock County School District. And the superintendent issued a video warning students about consequences of partaking in the illegal activity and pleading with parents for help. Students as young as elementary age up to teens at Hancock High are getting in trouble for vaping on campuses and on buses. School District Superintendent Teresa Merwin said in a video released on YouTube. Now, this is very interesting. I don't know a huge amount about vaping, but I do know that it is, it's not all the same. It's like any drugs, whether it be cocaine or heroin. Like, you just don't know what you're getting. You don't know what you're getting, right? There's no way of testing it. You have to trust the person who you buy it from or you get it from, that it's good stuff. And we had a very big case in England about 20 years ago, a young girl called Leah Betts. Do you remember the Leah Betts story, Carla? I'm sure you do. And Leah Betts was a young girl who took ecstasy at a party, and she didn't know what she was taking, and it was cut with something. And then tragically it killed her. And it was really the first time that we in the UK kind of looked at children becoming or falling victim to drugs that are unregulated, that are impure. And the Leah Betts story was a very tragic story for her parents, of course, who became campaigners, as is always the case, parents becoming campaigners after the death of their children. So my advice, just don't do it. Just don't do it. If you want to have something in your hand, I don't know, find something else to hold on to, I don't know, get a herbal cigarette or something. It's really not necessary. It's just not necessary. So that's a very interesting story, and I'm sure that, vaping, as with all of these things, will become a whole thing, if it hasn't already. Ukraine seeks to join EU as round of talks with Russia ends. That's right, an embattled Ukraine moved to solidify its bond with the West on Monday by applying to join the European Union, while the first round of Ukraine-Russia talks that aimed at ending the fighting concluded with no deal, but an agreement to keep talking. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky posted photos of himself signing the EU application, a largely symbolic move for now. It could take years to become reality and is unlikely to sit well with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has long accused the West of trying to pull Ukraine into its orbit. Russia and Ukraine officials held their meeting on day 5 of the war under the shadow of Putin's nuclear threats and with Moscow's invasion of Ukraine running into unexpectedly fierce resistance and Western sanctions beginning to wreak havoc on the economy at home. Yeah, I mean, there was the jury's out as to how long this convoy of Russian military is into Kiev. The Maxor satellite imagery suggested that it was 40 miles long. Now, I don't think that's true. I can't imagine how it's possible to have a convoy of military equipment that's 40 miles long. I think that there must be a mistake there. Just think about that for a second. You know how far 40 miles is. I can understand a 4-mile convoy, but a 40-mile convoy just sounds like it is a mistake. So we'll see how that transpires. I'll take a bet with you that it's probably going to end up being a 4-mile convoy and not a 40-mile convoy. 40 miles, I mean, you wouldn't have enough equipment and trucks for 40 miles, and yet every newspaper is publishing this story about a 40-mile convoy. And I just don't think it's possible. I just don't think it's possible. I think that the Maxor satellite people might have said it's 4 miles, and maybe they are, 40 miles away from Kiev, and it somehow got miscommunicated. But, you have to apply a little bit of logic and say, is it possible to have a convoy? You wouldn't even have a traffic jam of 40 miles. The most you'll get in a traffic jam is 4 miles, right? 6 miles. But 40 miles, that's going to involve more troops than he even has. I think Russia has got something like 350,000 troops. Anyway, we'll find out as the day goes on. Coast Transplant experiences Mardi Gras for the first time, it says. Yes, having just moved here from Miami and having grown up in Seattle, Mardi Gras parades are not something I have attended in my life, it says. When I was offered the chance to go to the night parade in Ocean Springs, I jumped at the opportunity. This is by Jesse Lieberman. In Seattle, I've been to a couple of solstice parades marked by naked bikers. About a decade ago, I attended a Seawalks Championship parade when they won the Super Bowl. Needless to say, both were on a far cry from Mardi Gras on Government Street. It's very interesting, isn't it, how a Coast Transplant experiences Mardi Gras for the first time. I have never been to a Mardi Gras. I mean, I've watched them on the television, on the telebox, but I've never had the pleasure. I actually think I would absolutely hate it. The idea of that many people and no nice toilets. I need access to a good bathroom with a good lock on it and some, decent facilities. Unless they were kind of going past a very nice hotel where I could just hang around in the reception area, order some coffee, use the restroom, read a newspaper, and then pop out occasionally and see the floats going by. I'm really not classy. Classy is something I am not, trust me. I had elocution lessons, remember, Carla? My whole family are East End Cockneys. I don't know that I'm classy. Many Capitol riot cases could hinge on first trial's outcome. It says the Justice Department launched one of the largest and most complex criminal investigations in its history after a mob of Donald Trump supporters stormed the Capitol over a year ago. Now it's time for a jury to hear some of the government's evidence about the unparalleled attack on American democracy. The first trial for one of the hundreds of Capitol riot prosecutions began this week, with jury selection starting Monday for the case against Guy Wesley Reffitt. The Texas man is charged with bringing a gun onto Capitol grounds. That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it creates a kind of precedent, doesn't it? It kind of sets some case law, as it were. Jimmy's joined us. I think he's trying to find his phone. Stacey, good morning. Yes, I'm ready for lunch hour with you. Welcome. Nice to spend the morning with you, or the afternoon, depending on where you're at. Let's have a little look now. Let's jump onto another newspaper. I think we're going to go to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch now for Missouri. Missouri. Some wonderful words, aren't they? Missouri, and I love the word Minneapolis. I just went to Minneapolis, or certainly to the airport on a transfer. And I just love these words, Think about it, Minneapolis. What a wonderful word. It's just so... You wouldn't hear it anywhere else. It has no other meaning. It doesn't mean anything else. Some places... like New York, both of those words mean something else. Minneapolis doesn't mean anything else. It's wonderful. The headline, bombardment intensifies. It says Russia shells second largest city. Troops close in on Kiev. Russian and Ukrainian delegations held 5 hours of inconclusive talks near the Belarus border on Monday as heavy Russian bombardment continued in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. And Western countries tightened their financial stranglehold on the Russian banking system. Amid what appeared to be a sporadic missile strikes in Kiev, satellite photographs showed a Russian column of troops and armored vehicles stretching for 17 miles, heading southeast in the direction of the Ukrainian capital. There it is. Bombardment intensifies, it says. Truckers rally for freedom. Also, this crazy story about this protest of COVID measures that don't exist anymore. That's what's so hilarious about this. There are no COVID restrictions, and yet they're still protesting because it took them forever to get their act together. It says, as somebody from the San Francisco Bay Area who voted for Donald Trump and didn't get vaccinated for COVID-19, Marianne Pedley McClintock knows what it feels like to be in the minority, especially when it came to doing her former job as a telehealth nurse for the Kaiser Foundation hospitals. She said, I refused to get the jab and they terminated me. The experience ultimately motivated her to drive to Southern California to cheer for the Peoples Convoy as it departed on Wednesday on a cross-country voyage to protest government overreach. I mean, just get the jab. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't know what freedom is, right? Look at Ukraine. Look at people who are not even being conscripted. They are asking to take part, to fight for their country. They are prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice for their country. And you won't even wear a mask, you dipstick. What a dipstick. What a lazy, selfish, foolish idiot. I mean, I've really lost patience for it. Now that I have Ukraine as a new level of perspective, I'm like, screw these people. You don't know what sacrifice is. You think that getting a jab is like a whole thing. It's nothing. I can't even remember having it. And I've never got coronavirus. Oh man, it's so frustrating. Like, I used to be like, yes, you know, if that's their view, we should respect their view. Now I'm like, you idiot! I just think this war has just changed my perspective on everything. You know? On everything. Okay, let's look at this story here. It says COVID case decline spurs end to some mask orders. Organizations across the region, from groceries to schools to courthouses, were left on Monday to grapple with changing mask requirements as COVID-19 rates here continue to decline. It says the region faces a new mix of rules. Mask mandates in St. Louis County and Illinois lifted on Monday. St. Louis City mask rule isn't set to end until Sunday. Yet face coverings are still required in airports and on public transportation. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're in a much better place, St. Louis County Executive Sam Page said during a briefing on Monday morning. Do you know, I wonder, isn't it interesting, like the timing of Putin going to war with coronavirus starting to dissipate? Like, do you think that was by design? Do you think that... You think he was waiting for the gas pipe to be fixed before he did this? Interesting. Because the timing is helpful. You know, if we were still in the midst of a full-on pandemic, then this war would have made it far worse. And people wouldn't just be dying on the battlefield, they'd also be dying in their homes. I mean, what that guy has only gone and done in the last 24 hours, you know, with the bombing of these government buildings. And I mean, I saw some images yesterday, and I saw a couple of correspondents doing video reports of walking through the streets and seeing bodies lying in the streets, and just like seeing how shell-shocked just the journalist was, you know, not realizing, like, what is that? And then realizing it was a human, you know. He said it's such a waste of life. Nobody needs to die in this conflict. Nobody. And yet they already reckon that there's nearly 400 dead, maybe more. You know? It's going to be thousands. There'll be thousands of people dead by the time this is finished. And now, of course, there's a chance that Putin could be put up in The Hague for war crimes now. This is what they're talking about. And in the International Criminal Court, the ICC, there's all these prosecutors now who are building cases for it and gathering evidence. Putin would never show up to The Hague, would he? Doesn't really buy into these things. UN climate report, Atlas of Human Suffering, worse, bigger, it says. Deadly with extreme weather now. Climate change is about to get so much worse. It's likely going to make the world sicker, hungrier, poorer, gloomier, and way more dangerous in the next 18 years, with an unavoidable increase in risks, a new United Nations science report says. And after that, watch out. The UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report said on Monday that if human-caused global warming isn't limited to just another couple of tenths of a degree... I'm going to sneeze, so I might mute myself momentarily, because I don't want you to have to witness the sneeze. Oh, it seems to have gone. Isn't that weird? Okay, it's gone. It'll come back in a flash right now, Now my cough button is out of service now, so I'm just going to have to press the M for mute. That's how it works now. It's like a technological version of the cough button. I might just put the cough button out here as a dummy device and just press it just to make myself feel better, Hey, Terry and Rowan. Rowan, first time on the show in Michigan. Thank you for joining us this morning. Great to see you. Welcome to Backchannel. I'm Anthony. We're just looking through the morning newspapers and this UN climate report on the front of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch that suggests that basically the end of the world is nigh. If we're not going to get killed by the pandemic or the Ukrainian or the Russian missiles, it's going to be climate change. I mean, what future is there for us? It says that if human-caused global warming isn't limited to just another couple of tenths of a degree, an Earth now struck regularly by deadly heat, fires, flood, and drought in future decades will degrade in 127 ways, with some being potentially irreversible. The cumulative scientific evidence is unequivocal. I mean, I have children, I worry for them. Where are we going to live? I mean, we can't stay here in California. It's just going to be too hot. We're going to have to go somewhere that is cooler. Can't go to Europe, of course, because we're not Europeans anymore because of those, damn Brexiteers. Cancelled card games would cost businesses. This is a breakdown in labor negotiations. Delaying the start of baseball season could mean a major league headache for businesses here. Dozens of them depend on the Cardinals to bring customers downtown to eat, drink, sleep, and spend. From April to October, St. Louis needs the Cardinals to play baseball, said Ryan Loafer, owner of Big Daddy's Bar, which runs shuttles to and from the games. I mean, I do love the fact that despite all of the craziness on the planet and in the world, that, fundamentally sports is just like a constant. You know what I mean? It's a constant. It's great. Okay, let's go to Montana now and to the Missoulian. The Missoulian. Sentinel students taste Montana marinara. What? Students and staff at Sentinel High School were among the first in Missoula to sample the new homegrown marinara sauce coming to schools across the state. The sauce, referred to as Montana marinara, features squash, carrots, onions, and more grown in the state for a truly tasty product. It's honestly really good, said Eli Brother, a freshman at Sentinel. It's just nice to know that everything's being sourced from an actual good source. It's just nice to know it's honestly homegrown by people that love growing stuff, he continued. They really put their love into it. I love a good marinara, I have to tell you. I mean, I actually buy the cheapest marinara from Trader Joe's. It's $1.79 for a big jar of it, and it's completely delicious. And, they sell marinara here. There's a company called Rouse that's based on a restaurant, and they sell the same size pot for like $11. And I'm like, its majority is tomato. Like, how can you charge $11 for a pot of marinara? What's in it? Like gold dust? Anyway, I love a marinara. But I make my own. I think I described the New York Times spaghetti recipe that I do, where I use these incredible San Marzano tomatoes. San Marzano tomatoes, you don't actually need a marinara. Just buy a tin of San Marzano tomatoes and just use that. Just maybe break a little basil into it, stir a little garlic in. You don't really need anything else. It is literally so pungent with its deliciousness that one would argue that really you just need to add a little oil to create a marinara. What is a marinara? It's just tomatoes, a little maybe seasoning. Yeah, I'm talking to Americans. I'm saying tomatoes. You say tomato, I say tomato. Carla, let's call the whole thing off. If I say tomatoes, no one's going to know what I'm talking about. I've already started replacing the T with a D, though. Have you noticed that? Tomatoes. 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 In England, we would say tomato. America, tomato. I mean, it's beautiful, isn't it? The differences. It's kind of beautiful. Rowan said anything from Montana is trash. Whoever said that is high. Well, I don't know. I've not been to Montana. You may be right. I know there's not much there. It's like a giant wasteland, but very beautiful. Russia shells Ukraine's number 2 city. Same story, different paper. Russia's forces shelled Ukraine's second largest city on Monday, rocking a residential neighborhood and closed in on the capital, Kiev, in a 17-mile convoy. See, this one's now saying 17 miles. I mean, maybe that's possible. Of tanks and other vehicles, as talks aimed at stopping the fighting yielded only an agreement to keep talking. 17 miles, 4 miles, 3 miles, 40 miles. I mean, what is this convoy? Also, a very big story here. Student arrested for alleged threats. A Big Sky High School student was arrested on Friday after allegedly making a credible threat of school violence on social media. The student, known as Parker Abbott, told police he was inspired by the Sandy Hook school shooter. Oh, man. An on-site school resource officer received information about Abbott's threat, which was made on Instagram and had been intercepted by the FBI, according to charging documents filed on Monday in Missoula County. Law enforcement initially thought the threat came from the Billings area because of the IP address, but was able to determine that Abbott was the suspect. The resource officer alerted administration about the threats and subsequently made contact with Abbott. He granted the officer permission to search his backpack and car without a warrant, court documents said. 2 notebooks and a crumpled piece of paper were found, which referenced suicidal thoughts and the recent arrest of 4 people on the anniversary of the 1999 Columbine High School massacre in Colorado, in which 12 students and 1 teacher were murdered. Detectives arrived on the scene to assist. They reviewed Instagram messages in which Abbott used the handle Adam's Rotten Flesh. I mean, I'll be honest with you. This is good, right? This is good. Because the last thing we want is for the FBI not to be intercepting these warnings. It's these very warnings that are often there, and yet people just don't seem to notice. I mean, the last shooting that I remember, the parents bought the gun for the kid. The parents were so negligent. So negligent. And of course, this all starts and ends with parents, always. So I'm pleased that it sounds to me like a school shooting has been foiled, courtesy of the efforts of the FBI. Hi, Cindy. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Backchannel from South Carolina. Welcome. First time on the show. You're welcome any day. We're here all the time. I'm here every morning. I'm on the West Coast, so this is like 9:30 in the morning for me. I'm sure it's a little later for you. But nice to know that you're here, hanging out with us. And maybe, are you staying home, or are you out at work, or are you working from home, or are you moonlighting, you skiving, taking the day off? You can let me know. If you're using an Echo Show, which I think you are, then you can just say the word, whatever the wake-up word is, Echo or whatever it's called, and then you say your message, and it comes through to me here. It's very clever. You can basically talk to the device, and it comes through to me here. I don't hear your voice, I just see the words. Okay, let's move on with the morning newspapers while Cindy works out how to do that. Let's go to the Reno Gazette-Journal for Nevada, right? Calls for peace is the headline. And people gathering in Reno to support family and friends in Ukraine. There have been so many protests across America protesting the war in Ukraine. Amazing, really, how much support there is. Volodymyr Zelensky is my new hero. I mean, this guy is like remarkable. He's remarkable. I posted an Instagram picture of him standing in the street outside that church. You know, took a selfie and made a little video, screenshotted it, posted it, and I just put this guy and a heart. I love him. He's a superhero. His strength, his resistance. He knows he's probably going to die. They want him. That's all they want. Putin wants to get in there, wants to remove Zelensky and put a Russian in charge. That's his plan. And not even like a Putin sympathizer. He wants an all-out Russian senior, probably a general or somebody to run that country. It's crazy town. The whole thing now is crazy town. One of my favorite things has been the interesting language that they've been putting on street signs. Have you seen this and heard about this? So you know the illuminated street signs that are controlled externally? They've basically been putting words in Russian, telling the Russians to, clear off in very expletive language. And then with other signs, they've been turning them around so they point in the wrong directions, right? So to send the Russians away from Kiev. And then other ones they've been removing altogether. I think it's great. Yeah, I really feel like this is bringing the world community together in such a spectacular way. And tragically, the right wing, the Republican Party, and the far-right extremes of the Republican Party, they are all rooting for Russia. They are rooting for Russia. They want Putin to win. Tucker Carlson, who is the biggest far-right TV personality on a so-called news channel, most watched in all of America, every night is rooting for Putin. Last night, he claimed that he's like, why are they saying I'm supporting Putin? I might play a clip actually of this if you'd like to hear it. It's kind of quite good. So my friends basically mashed up a clip of exactly this. Of Tucker Carlson saying in one breath, why are they saying that I am supporting him? And then they mashed together all of the clips of him supporting him over the last day or so. Yeah, let me find it. It's very good. Oh, John Cleese posted a very good thing. Did you hear what John Cleese said? He said, I see that Trump is claiming that Putin would not have invaded Ukraine if he'd been president. He said he's probably right. If his poodle had still been president, Putin might not have needed to attack Ukraine because he had already have won. Think about that. Putin basically owned America. As long as Trump was in power, Putin controlled America. We forget these things. Okay, I'm going to play the Tucker Carlson clip. Is that okay? It's only a minute long. So this is basically, Tucker Carlson saying it's an awful thing that people are saying that I supported Russia. He said, why are they saying it? It doesn't make sense. So you'll hear that clip first, and then you'll hear a mashup of clips from the last week where he is supporting Russia. Here it is.
We have Republicans who are rooting for Russia, and that makes it very hard for President Biden to get the whole country to go along when Donald Trump, Mike Pompeo, and Tucker Carlson are rooting for Russians, and that's being replayed on Russia TV to rally Russians for this cause.
It's such an awful thing to say. We hesitated even to play that. It's very common. You hear it every day. The question is, why are they saying that? It doesn't make sense. But is there another reason we should side with Ukraine over Russia? Russia is a much more significant country by every measure. Why is it disloyal to side with Russia, but loyal to side with Ukraine? They're both foreign countries that don't care anything about the United States, China, which is the actual threat. Why would we take Ukraine's side? Why wouldn't we be on Russia's side? I'm totally confused so much. Has Putin ever called me a racist? Has he threatened to get me fired for disagreeing with him? Has he shipped every middle-class job in my town to Russia? I should say for the record, I'm totally opposed to these sanctions, and I don't think that we should be at war with Russia. And I think we should probably take the side of Russia if we have to choose between Russia and Ukraine. That is my view. But Ukraine and Russia. And I'm serious.
I'll tell you why.
And why shouldn't I root for Russia, which I am?
There it is. Why shouldn't I root for Russia? Because I am. This is the contradictory kind of evidence that is presented on Fox that, millions of right-wing people watch every single day. And of course, it just, Cindy's worked it out. Hi, I'm Cindy and I'm glad to be here. Cindy, love you. Thank you. You see, it can be done. The joy of the Echo Show. Well, anytime you want to chat, be my guest. Rob's joined us from Wisconsin. Hi, Rob. First time on the show. Welcome. Tell me where you're at, what you're doing today. We're just discussing the fact that Tucker Carlson on Fox News is rooting for Russia to win the war with Ukraine. Denies it. And then, of course, the evidence is against him because all week he's been saying it. And, of course, it's on television, so it's all recorded. So I just played a whole bunch of clips of him rooting for Russia. Cindy, Rob, are you watching the news? Are you keeping an eye out on this story? Is it something that you are kind of emotionally connected to? Maybe you have family in Ukraine, or you've been to Ukraine, or you've been to Eastern Europe, or, I do think that what Tucker Carlson said on that clip was that, Russia and Ukraine, they don't care about America, and it's completely inaccurate. It's just so false. The stuff that he comes out with is so offensive and so false. Just putting this propaganda out there to try and kind of make everybody hate each other. And fundamentally, we're all the same. We're all the same. Rob, where are you today? Are you at home in Wisconsin? Are you working? Do you have your Echo Show out on the table? Is it hidden on a shelf somewhere? Just let me know where you're at and how you're enjoying the show this morning. We're looking through some of the morning papers. The Reno Gazette-Journal, masks now optional on school buses. It says, while not every student in the Washoe County School District has the option of riding the bus to and from school this week, all now have the choice to ditch masks while aboard. I'll be honest, I really don't agree with this. I just think if you're going to be on a school bus for however long your journey is, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, just put the mask on. What difference? It's not inconvenient. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't think the pandemic is over, I think they're trying to put convenience ahead of science. It's unnecessary. 25th of February, the CDC lifted the recommendation to require people wear masks on buses or vans operated by public or private school systems, including early care and education childcare programs. As such, WCSD issued a message on Sunday informing parents that as of Monday morning, wearing masks on district school buses is optional for students and staff. So there we go. Drive-through dispensary marks a first. Reno Sparks Indian Colony celebrates opening of Pot Shop. Three Nations Cannabis, owned by Reno Sparks Indian Colony, as a soft opening on Saturday afternoon after tribe members conducted a cultural blessing that included prayers and music. The first purchase made at Reno's first drive-through dispensary was made by Arlen Melendez, chairman of the RSIC. He bought a cream to help with his shoulder pain. Isn't that great? I mean, it's so funny how progressive America is in some ways. You know, it's like it wants to do drive-through cannabis dispensaries, and in other ways it's trying to ban abortion and stop trans people from taking part in sports. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Pick one. Pick a direction and head in that direction, you know? The UN has reported that more than an estimated 500,000 people have escaped Ukraine since Russia began attacks on Thursday. Checkpoints at neighboring countries have been experiencing long lines of Ukrainian refugees trying to leave the country. Yeah, hoping to make it into the security of EU territories amid the ongoing violence. I mean, they just need to get everybody out, don't they? You know, just get everybody out and then dump a whole load of military in and let them fight it out. But that's really the tragedy of all of this, is the number of civilians that are definitely, you know, being, they're definitely going to get, involved or be affected, you know. Cindy says Putin is the modern-day Hitler. Well, this is true. No doubt about that. You know, he's, especially when you hear him now, he's setting up some, anti-fascist conference. You hear about this? Claiming that Ukraine is a fascist country. So he's setting up a conference of anti-fascism. This is what Trump did when he designated Antifa a terrorist organization. You know, it's not even an organization, let alone a terrorist organization. And he designated it a terrorist organization because he is the fascist. And this is effectively what these people do, you know. Harper, welcome to the show. Great to hear you. I know you're listening. Nancy, Stacy, Rob, Cindy, Rose as well joined us this morning about 20 minutes ago. Roanne and Terry and Jimmy, and of course Stacy. Welcome. And if you want to join in at any point in this conversation, as Cindy just did, saying Putin is the modern-day Hitler, then go for it, you know. If you're struggling to talk to your Echo Show device and you want to type a little bit longer, then just go to backchannel.tv. That's backchannel.tv. Okay, let's jump on another newspaper here. We just did the Reno Gazette-Journal. Let's try the Valley News for New Hampshire now. They lead with the best day. A photograph of some kids jumping down from a plowed snow pile or playing with friends, enjoying a snow day from school in Windsor on Friday. Vermont top 10 in LGBTQ residents. The state is number 1 per capita for same-sex couples. Interesting, isn't it? Vermont, who knew? Vermont has the 7th highest rate of LGBTQ people in the nation, according to a survey analysis from the Williams Institute. It also has the highest rate of same-sex couples in the nation. The data comes amid a recent report that the number of LGBTQ-identifying adults is rising nationwide. About 7% of adults said they considered themselves to be a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or something other than heterosexual in 2021, compared to 3.5% of respondents in 2012. Wow, that's so interesting. It's so interesting. Because, of course, there aren't more gay people in society than there were. The numbers don't change. Statistically, the numbers are always the same. It's the number of people who are willing to admit to it. The number of people who are confident to come out about it. The number of people who actually want to interact with a survey about it. There's so many variables. But what it shows to me is that people are now more confident about their sexuality and that it's okay. It's less, they feel less stigma associated with it now. It says members of Generation Z, born from 1997 to 2003, were to most likely be reported as LGBT+, according to the national survey. About 21% said they identified that way, compared to 11% of millennials and even lower rates among older generations. In Vermont, too, young adults are leading the state in LGBTQ identification. Around 25% of Vermonters are between ages 18 and 24, according to the Williams Institute. The data is a rare insight into the demographics of LGBTQ folk in Vermont, since data collection on those communities has historically been fairly limited. It's very interesting. Planners pan AT&T cell tower site in Chelsea. A man with history of sex offenders released. And NH fast-tracks energy efficiency law. This is interesting. It says House Bill 549 was rushed through the legislative process after a November decision from the Public Utilities Commission to cut the program's funding while also denying a 3-year consensus plan for unprecedented spending on energy efficiency. It's interesting, isn't it, how different states are like managing climate change in their own way. And here, it seems that they're kind of finally coming round to it. The law has been lauded for providing needed certainty about the future of state programs, but advocates say it also limits the growth of energy efficiency programs by setting a cap on funding. So there we are. Harper has joined us. Welcome back, Harper. Nice to see you. Haven't seen you for a while. Nancy, Stacey, Rob, Cindy, still with us. Wonder if anyone's been to Vermont and has had a gay-o time in Vermont. Let me know. Okay, let's jump on to another one now. That was the Valley News. Let's go to the Courier News now. The Courier News, Ukraine talks go nowhere is their headline, saying that, they had these talks, didn't they? I think they lasted like 5 or 6 hours, and they just agreed to keep on talking. So obviously they didn't make any progress. But I'll be honest, I didn't hold out much hope for those talks. Did you? Exactly. Is NJ saying goodbye to business as usual? This is the president and CEO of a company's offices after plexiglass dividers were added to cubicles and desks where the full room of employees used to do their work. Companies now going to stagger and reduce in-office work days. Do you know, this is very interesting. So this is like plexiglass, obviously putting up in the office to... Oh, they're thrilled. They're thrilled. They put the plexiglass up, obviously, for the purposes of coronavirus safety. But I do think that an increasing number of businesses have realized that they don't even need the office at all. What's the point in having the office? People work very well at home, and arguably, and this is really the tragic fact of this, is that you're actually more likely to work from home longer hours than you would if you were at work, because you're not traveling. And you're always by your machine. And if you are somebody who's done this, if maybe you've not gone into the office, maybe Harper or Nancy or Stacey or even Rob, maybe you yourselves have started working from home because of the pandemic, have you found that you're actually, ironically, doing more time on the clock for no more money than you were before? Sandy's joined us. Hello, Sandy. Welcome to Backchannel. It's 9:45 here on the West Coast. I'm in California. Depending on where you are, it could be 11, it could be 12. So welcome. Nice to know you're part of the show. If you want to message me, just go to backchannel.tv in your browser. NJ Utilities start paying up or lose gas and electricity after March 15. It says hundreds of thousands of electric and natural gas customers in New Jersey who are behind on their utility bills will soon face the prospect of having their service cut off unless they sign up for help or make payment arrangements. Utilities already have sent out disconnection notices to some customers who are in arrears. Where I'm from, it's actually illegal to cut off the supply. Did you know that? So even if you can't pay your bills, they're not allowed to cut you off. It's a law in the United Kingdom where you're not actually allowed to be cut off. So they can send you bills and they can send you a court summons and all these things, but they can't actually cut off your supply because then you would be cold. And you can't be cold because that's against your human rights. Interesting. Isn't it? Interesting. It says now after a winter moratorium against shutoffs expires on March 15, the companies can restart collection activities put off for 2 years since the start of the pandemic. Customers who are behind should contact their utilities right away. Financial assistance programs and payment plans are available. Oh, do you know what I found out today? This is very annoying. So I like Groupon. Are you aware of Groupon? because I get my dentistry through Groupon because I don't have insurance for dentistry and it's very expensive. So I find a dentist that's doing a promotion and they do a teeth cleaning or a checkup for like $20 or something and I book it. So I found a teeth cleaning thing for $11 6 months ago, right? And I went and it was the best teeth cleaning I have ever had. The woman was amazing. She's a teacher at the local university. Amazing she was, amazing. So I booked it again. I saw I could book it again for 6 months' time, right? I booked it again. And I just went to look at it today, and it's expired. I didn't book the appointment. I only bought the Groupon. So I've wasted that money, which means that initial cleaning actually cost me like $22. I mean, it's still a bargain. And maybe you're a Groupon person like me. You know, maybe you're somebody who feels like that teeth care is so expensive in this town that the only way to get access to decent dentistry is through Groupon. I mean, maybe. You can let me know in the usual way. Backchannel.tv. If you're a Groupon user, maybe you can feel my pain. And then there was another one that I did for some other treatment. And that was $35, and I booked it, and I completely forgot about it. And when I looked today, that's also expired. So I've given Groupon loads, It's crazy. I feel like I've been scammed by myself. Okay, let's move on to another newspaper. That one was the Courier News. Let's go to the press of Atlantic City here for New Jersey. This is interesting. Last day for history-making Latino judge. He broke barriers at the state's first Latino assignment judge in 2011 when he took on leadership at the Atlantic and Cape May vicinage. Never heard that word before. Vicinage of Superior Court, but on this last day on the bench, Judge Julio Mendez revisited his earliest days in the law. In the law? Who wrote this? This is the weirdest, this is literally like the weirdest writing. Michelle Brunetti Post wrote this. It says, at the Cumberland County Courthouse, I might have to contact Michelle. I'll just go through it with a red pen. At the Cumberland County Courthouse at Broad and Fayette Streets, Mendez heard an adoption case and a petition for custody in courtroom 207, the first courtroom in which he ever argued a case. It was also the courtroom he occupied for 9 years as a family court judge in Cumberland County. The Chief Justice signed a one-day order allowing me to come to Cumberland County, Mendez said in an interview after his court session ended. He turned 70 on Monday, which is the state's mandatory retirement age for Superior Court judges. That's interesting. In England, the retirement age is 126. I do think about judges a lot. I think about what constitutes a judge, what makes a good judge. How do we allow some humans to be worthy of judgment of other humans? And especially when I was looking at the Kyle Rittenhouse case with, of course, that crazy right-wing judge who was so inappropriate and said all those ridiculous things and was a little bit racist and a little bit prejudiced, and he prejudiced the jury by, it was a mess. And I just thought to myself, think about all of the cases that this terrible judge has presided over, where people's livelihoods and lifestyles and family situation is all in the hands of this awful, terrible man. How did he ever get to that position? I don't know. I just feel like we are. I just feel like we are starting to question things that over the years we wouldn't really think about. Oh, the judge said this, the judge said that. And now we're like, who is this judge? What's this judge's story? What makes them, what qualifies them to be a judge? I mean, it's a wonderful responsibility, isn't it? We have JPs in England. You know about JPs, Carla? It stands for Justice of the Peace. It's like an amateur judge. It's like an unpaid judging role where you do like local judging. And when I was growing up, a few of my parents' friends were JPs. A couple of people were JPs. Yeah, it stands for Justice of the Peace. They're basically, they are judges. They're judges. They are people who are upstanding citizens in society, and they are given the responsibility to be judges on cases that are not worthy of civil or criminal court. And it's very interesting that why is it that this one person can be designated a justice of the peace? I mean, obviously, historically, just the phrase JP must go back hundreds of years to communities seeking adjudication and reaching out to elders or people in the society for advice and support and judgment. Do they still have JPs? I guess they must do. Must still be a thing. Oh, they have them in America as well. Oh, yeah. Shells fall amid talks is the headline also on the front of the press of Atlantic City. It says Russian forces shelled Ukraine's second largest city on Monday. I don't know if you've seen any of the video pictures of this, but really, I mean, visually, it was just shocking. To actually watch a war play out in real time, to actually see a war unfold in real time. It's just... You know, it reminds me, I think I mentioned on the show the other week, it reminds me of that time when we first watched the Iraq War 25 years ago. You know, with George Bush Sr. And it was the first time we saw live pictures from the front line, and we watched rockets being fired in the air and Scud missiles landing, and it was terrifying. I used to sit up all night watching it, like some horror film. I think a lot of phrases were coined during those periods. You know, there was a lot of, I mean, it was just terrifying. And this is what people don't understand about war. And this is why I maintain that the extraction of military personnel from Afghanistan that Joe Biden oversaw in September, that was widely criticized around the world, to me just looked completely normal. It looked completely normal. What were people expecting? What were they expecting it to be like boarding an aircraft or disembarking an aircraft when you're going on vacation? You know, were they expecting it to be like everyone to be stand in line perfectly peacefully? I mean, it was an evacuation from a war zone that was under fire from the Taliban. Of course it was going to be messy, but everybody got out. And yet the media and the opposition criticizing Biden and the military. What a terrible thing. And it's like, are you crazy? What do you expect? And so now when we're looking at the theater of war in Ukraine, and we're seeing the Russians piling in to these cities, to the second city and soon into Kiev, it's going to be messy. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be horrific. And tragically, so much of it is being broadcast on television, you know? Local stores boycott Russian vodka is the headline. Bars, restaurants, and liquor stores across North America participating in an international boycott of Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. And some South Jersey shores are pouring their own time and resources into pro-Ukrainian efforts. Yeah, we've heard a little bit about this. It's kind of interesting. Maybe you yourself have a kind of, you know, Russian products that maybe you buy, vodka or something that you're just going to kind of, you know, maybe you're going to boycott yourself. Nelson has joined us in Florida. Hi, Nelson. Bubbles, welcome to the show. And Sandy, first time on the show as well, listening to Backchannel there. You can message me at backchannel.tv. Okay, let's move on with the papers because we've got lots to get through and it's almost time for the US news update, which we'll bring you in a couple of minutes' time. Next on the list, let's take a good look here. I've accidentally opened notes. Let's just quit that. There we go. New Jersey. Oh, yes, the Alamogordo Daily News. Where is Alamogordo? Interesting. Proposal would grant asylum for Canadians is the headline. This says Congresswoman Yvette Herrell, New Mexico's sole federal GOP representative, made headlines last weekend when she made comments proposing temporary asylum for Canadians and protesting vaccine mandates and other COVID-19 mitigation measures. On February 19, Herrell said she would be introducing legislation to temporarily grant asylum to innocent Canadian protesters being persecuted by their government. This paper's from New Mexico, the Alamogordo Daily News. The Congresswoman's comments came after reports of police using pepper spray and stun grenades to disperse protesters in Canada's capital city. I don't know. I just feel like we've completely lost sight of the message of all of these protests, you know? Just lost sight of the message. And I'm feeling this more and more since the war in Ukraine. And see what real sacrifice is. Native adoption law to be reviewed. It says the Supreme Court agreed to review a case involving a federal law that gives Native Americans preference in adoptions of Native children. The High Court said on Monday it would take the case that presents the most significant legal challenges to the Indian Child Welfare Act since it was passed in 1978. The law has been championed by Native American leaders as a means of preserving their families and culture. There it is. And okay, I'm going to move on because there's lots to get through and I want to squeeze these in. Let's go to the New York Times now. Rocket assaults kill civilians in Ukraine as tightening sanctions isolate Moscow. Yes, for 2 decades under President Vladimir Putin, Russians reaped the bounties of capitalism and globalization. Cheap flights, affordable mortgages, a plethora of imported gadgets and cars. On Monday, those perks of modern life were abruptly disappearing, replaced by a crush of anxiety as sanctions imposed by the West in retaliation for Moscow's invasion of Ukraine rattled the foundations of Russia's financial system. The ruble cratered, losing a quarter of its value, and the central bank shuttered stock trading in Moscow through Tuesday. The public rushed to withdraw cash from ATMs, and Aeroflot, the national airline, cancelled all of its flights to Europe after countries banned Russian planes from using their airspace. I mean, it's massive, isn't it? But I honestly don't think any of this is going to put Putin off. None of it is going to put him off. Because fundamentally, the guy is a killer. He is a trained KGB killer. And in his opinion, this is what he wants. He's gone to go and get it. He's going to throw everything at it. He doesn't care how many people get killed. He has no empathy. He's a bit like Donald Trump in that way. You know, he's a narcissist. He has no empathy for humanity. So he will just go ahead and do it. And to kind of make him think that, oh, maybe I'll on humanitarian ground. No, none of it. He's just going for it. And that's really the problem now, is that we're dealing with a madman. And the guy's always been mad. Always. And when he went along to meetings and looked like he was interested, he was playing a part. He was just playing a role, trying to join in with the international community. And tragically, Trump fell for it. Trump thought that he had Putin, under his wing, and it was the other way around. Okay, we'll take a look at more of the New York Times in just a moment. Let's first listen to the US News Update. It's a daily podcast that I bring you that tells you what's going on across the United States of America. You can download it wherever you get your podcasts. Here it is.
It's Tuesday.